Hi everyone. Welcome to my channel, Math Made Easy with Terry 10 minutes. Okay, so we're gonna talk about graphing of absolute value. In the previous video, I talked about how what the concept of absolute values, what we're gonna talk about, and one of the things we're gonna talk about will be graphing. So let's get straight into it. Okay. So I'm going to talk about the general form of absolute value functions, and I'm going to write it. And I'm going to show you how does it look like. Then I'll do like an example in this video. Then the next video, I'm going to do more examples. Okay. So now the general form of absolute value function is, so I'm going to write it down here. So in case you're taking notes, so the general form of absolute value, so it's usually f of x is equal to a x minus h plus k. So remember, I told you that absolute values are always within the vertical lines. So first thing is that we have the a. Now the a tells us how far the graph is going to stretch vertically, and sometimes also tells us if it's going to open upwards or downwards. Okay, so I'm going to write it here. So a, it tells us how far the graph stretches vertically, and also it also tells us whether it's going to open upward or inwards. So whether the graph opens upwards, or you can just say, better put, whether it opens up or down. That would be better than that opens up or down. Okay. And our advice, before you look at this, please review my videos on transformation of graphs. It's important because we're going to apply transformation of graph here. So it's similar to transformation of graph where you have stretching, translation, reflection. Okay. It's ways similar as well. Then the next one, the H. The H tells us how far the graph is going to shift horizontally, similar to translation of functions. Is that making sense? So it tells us how far the graph shifts horizontally. So that, and also now the K, similar to the translation of graph upward and downward, same thing. It tells us how far the graph is going to shift vertically. Does that make sense? So this tells us how far the graph shifts vertically. Okay, there is that. So these are the three things that you need to keep in mind. So when you have a particular function of modulus and you're asked to draw the graph for it, how does it look like? So let's quickly start with the first one. So let's assume we have y is equal to the absolute value of x. So as usual, let's assume this is it. You have to pardon my graphing, my diagram. So it's going to be a rough sketch. So remember, we told you that you can't have negative. So therefore, for this, it's going to be something like this. Okay. Or should I use another color so that it will, I'll do it like this. Okay. So let's say, for instance, this is 2. This point here is 2. And let's pick this point. And this point here is, let's say, 2, 2. Making sense. Now, the next one, let's say now we now have this graph, y is equal to 3x. So it's similar to stretching of a function. Does that make sense? So, but remember I told you that the a, or the a here, tells us how far the graph is going to stretch vertically. So that means y towards the y direction. Does that make sense? In the y direction. So this is going to stretch. So we're going to have a graph like this. Okay, so this time now we're gonna have a stretched graph. So it's gonna stretch in the y direction. So this point that was 2 was stretched now. That is still 2, but the corresponding number here could be like 6. So it's gonna stretch upwards. Is that making sense? Then if we have that, we can then play around with another one. So let's say we have y is equal to minus x, modulus of x. So similar to the transformation of graph I talked about earlier in the video. So you go back and look at transformation of graphs. There, same thing. The negative now means reflection. Does that make sense? So the same thing, going to be a reflection. So that means this graph now, okay, that was positive, okay. All right, so this graph is going to be reflected now. So it's going to be the other way around. So it's going to look like this, how you say? So the same principle. We have the 2, okay. So let's say this was 2. Now, it was 2 now, it will be reflected now to what? Minus 2. Okay. So now let's take it a step further, all right? Let's take it a step further. Let's see if we can combine both two transformation here. So let's say we have y is equal to the absolute of value of x plus 3 minus 2. Okay. So the first thing, so that means for us to get to this point, the first thing the graph did was from y equals to x plus 3. Okay, so it moves from let me clean this. So the graph were 2 transformation here. So normally the graph we had was this, then it was transformed to y x plus 3. Then it was now transformed to y is equal to x plus 3 minus 2. Okay, so that means we have 2 transformation here. So what you can do, the same thing, you draw the graph. So it was transformed from this. Can you see? Then the next transformation that happened, it was plus 3. So it's going to move 3 units in the negative direction. So that means we're going to have something like this. You see? We'll move 3 units in the negative direction. Then after that, it's going to come what? Downwards by what? 2 units. So that means what we should be expecting is that it's going to move from here, it's going to come downwards. So it's going to be something like this. So 2 units, while this is what? It's going to be minus 2, while this is 3. So this is the graph for that. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the next video. I'm going to solve more examples on this, on the graphing, just to familiarize ourselves with this. So it's similar to graphs and transformation. So basically, you just know that all the form of modulus is from y is equal to modulus of x. Then all transformation that you can get is going to be from there. So just try as much as possible to review transformation of graphs, okay? So I'll see you in the next video. I'm going to solve more examples in the next video, okay? So if you have any question, feel free to drop it in the chat box and I'll get back to you. Or you can send me an email and I'll get back to you. Thank you very much.